Hey ARMY, stop whatever you're doing right now, because what happened on the night of May 25th, 2026 is exactly the kind of moment that reminds the entire world why BTS is not just a group, but a phenomenon that refuses to slow down. We're talking about a night in Las Vegas, Memorial Day night to be exact, where 7 men walked into one of music's biggest award shows and walked out with a perfect record. 3 nominations, 3 wins, not a single miss, and at the center of it all, one moment stood out above everything else. One quote from one member that ARMY has not stopped talking about since the broadcast ended. ParkJimin, standing at the microphone after BTS swept the 52nd American Music Awards, saying that despite everything he has been through, despite every packed stadium and sold-out arena and historic stage he has ever stood on, this night was still the most nerve-wracking moment of his entire year. That is where we are going today. But we are going to take you through the whole story because every piece of it matters, and every piece of it earned its place in the history of this fandom. Before we get into it, if you are new here, welcome to the channel. We're here for everything BTS, everything Jimin, every milestone, and every moment that deserves to be talked about at full length. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications so you never miss a video. And if you have been here for a while, you already know we do not do surface-level coverage. We go deep on every story. So let us go deep on this one. The 52nd American Music Awards took place at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, on Memorial Day, Monday, May 25th, 2026. The host for the evening was the iconic Queen Latifah, who was returning to the AMA stage after an extraordinary 31 years away. That alone would have been enough to make the night feel historic. But what made the 2026 AMAs truly unforgettable had everything to do with 7 men from South Korea and the millions of fans around the world who love them more than most people love anything. The night began before a single award was announced, before a single acceptance speech, before anything else that was going to happen that evening. The show opened with BTS, a pre-recorded performance of Hooligan from their ongoing Nerve-Wracking world tour, filmed at their Allegiant Stadium concert the night before, Sunday, May 24th, broadcast on every screen in the MGM Grand Garden Arena, and to millions of viewers watching at home on CBS and Paramount+. The production was not subtle. It was not understated. It was exactly what you would expect from BTS at this moment in their career, which is to say it was stunning. Heavy theatrical fog blanketing the stage, blood red lighting casting the performance in a dramatic, almost cinematic intensity. 7 men in coordinated black leather outfits moving through choreography so precise, so sharp, so rehearsed and yet so alive that it felt like every movement had been replaced with intention. Each member got their own close-up moment. Each one had a chance to look directly into the camera and own the frame completely. RM delivering his opening verse with the still, controlled authority of someone who knows exactly who he is and exactly what he is doing. Jimin, radiant, precise, present in the way that only Jimin is present on a stage. Jungkook with that effortless charisma that makes every camera moment feel like it was made for him. V with the kind of visual magnetism that stops everything it encounters. Jin, Suga, J-Hope, each of them giving the performance everything, because that is the only way BTS knows how to do anything. The crowd inside the MGM Grand Garden Arena responded immediately. ARMY in the building were on their feet before the first chorus. Light sticks filled the room. The sound level spiked. And around the world, from Seoul to Jakarta to Los Angeles to London to Sao Paulo, ARMY watching on their screens reacted in exactly the same way. Because even pre-recorded, even through a screen, the energy of that performance was completely undeniable. BTS had just set the tone for the entire evening, and it was a tone that said, "We are here, we are not playing, and this night belongs to us." Let us also talk about the song itself, Hooligan, and why BTS chose it as their AMA opening statement. Hooligan is not the soft, introspective side of Nerve-Wracking. It is not the emotional ballad or the quiet moment of vulnerability. It is BTS at their most confident, most irreverent, most fully alive in the pure energy of what they do. It is a song that says, "We are not here to be careful. We are not here to play it safe. We are here to make an impression, and we will do it on our own terms." For an award show opening, for the moment when the entire audience is still settling into the evening, Still deciding what kind of night this is going to be, Hooligan was the only choice that made sense. It grabbed the room in the first 8 bars and did not let go. And given what the rest of the night was going to bring for BTS, it set exactly the right tone. This was not a group coming to collect an award politely. This was a group coming to remind the world who they are. There is a detail about this performance that deserves to be named explicitly because it says something important about the kind of group BTS is. They were already in the middle of a demanding 4-night Las Vegas run at Allegiant Stadium when the AMAs took place. First show Saturday the 23rd, second show Sunday the 24th, the night this performance was filmed. AMAs on Monday the 25th. 2 more shows, still coming on the 27th and 28th. They were deep inside a world tour that has been running for months across multiple continents, giving everything to their shows every single night. And still, they chose to show up for this moment. They chose to give the AMA something real and memorable and worthy of the occasion, even when it would have been completely understandable to send a video message and consider the obligation fulfilled. That is not something every group does. That is not something every artist does. That is a specific kind of commitment, a specific kind of respect for the fans and for the moment that is uniquely and consistently BTS. ARMY has always known this. And nights like May 25th are the reason why. Now let us talk about the awards, because this is where the story of the night finds its full shape. BTS had 3 nominations at the 2026 American Music Awards: Artist of the Year, Song of the Summer for Swim, and Best Male K-pop Artist. All 3 were fan-voted, which means every result is a direct, concrete, measurable expression of what ARMY chose to do with their time and their energy. Every vote cast, every ballot submitted, every moment spent making noise for BTS in the lead-up to May 25th, it all came back as trophies. The first win of the evening came early, Song of the Summer for Swim. And if you have been following the Nerve-Wracking era from the very beginning, from the moment that album was announced, through the release, through the world tour that followed, you understand exactly what this song means. Swim was the lead single, the opening statement, the first thing BTS offered the world after everything. The song they chose to announce their return. And the world responded with the kind of numbers that make history. Swim went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, accumulated hundreds of millions of streams, dominated radio across multiple formats, and became one of the defining cultural moments of the summer of 2026. Song of the Summer at the AMAs was not just appropriate, it was the only correct outcome. There is another dimension to the Swim, when that deserves attention. When BTS chose Swim as their comeback single, they were making a statement not just about music but about direction. They could have played it safe. They could have returned with something familiar, something designed to ease the audience back in gently. Instead, they came back with something that challenged expectations, something that asked new questions about what BTS sounds like in this phase of their career. RM admitted on stage that he had felt real pressure around Swim, had questioned whether it was the right call. The fact that it went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won Song of the Summer at the AMAs is not just a commercial result. It is a validation of a choice that required genuine courage. That is what makes the win meaningful beyond the trophy. RM accepted the award and thanked ARMY immediately. And I want to sit with this for a moment, because it matters more than it might seem. The AMAs are entirely fan-voted. There is no committee of industry experts, no panel of critics deciding these results. The awards go to whoever the fans choose, which means that every single trophy BTS brought home on the night of May 25th is a direct reflection of what ARMY is, the most dedicated, most organized, most passionate fanbase in the world. The trophies belong to BTS, but the achievement belongs to everyone who voted. Every click, every ballot, every hour spent making sure BTS's name was heard in the final count. That is ARMY. That is what this community does. The second win, Best Male K-pop Artist, was announced after the televised broadcast ended, not presented on camera during the live show. But 3 nominations and 3 wins is a perfect night by any measure. And then Artist of the Year, the biggest award, the top of the mountain. The award that, when BTS first won it in 2021, made history as the first Korean act to ever claim that honor at the American Music Awards. 5 years later, they were back to do it again. Busta Rhymes walked out to present the award. The energy in the room shifted in that specific way that happens before a major announcement, thousands of people simultaneously holding their breath, the entire building suspended in collective anticipation. Busta opened the envelope. He read the name, BTS. The arena erupted. It was one of those moments that you feel in your body before your brain fully processes it. A wave of sound and joy and emotion that swept through the MGM Grand Garden Arena and traveled through every screen to every living room and phone and laptop where ARMY was watching. Now consider the competition. To win Artist of the Year at the 2026 AMAs, BTS had to beat Bad Bunny, Bruno Mars, Harry Styles, Justin Bieber, Kendrick Lamar, Lady Gaga, Morgan Wallen, Sabrina Carpenter, and Taylor Swift, who led all 2026 AMA nominations with 8 nods and who holds the all-time record for AMA wins with 40 trophies. These are not small names. These are not easy competitors. This is the absolute top tier of global popular music. And ARMY chose BTS. Every single category. Not one loss. Taylor Swift, one of the most powerful names in the history of this award show, left the night without a trophy. BTS left with 3. That is what ARMY is capable of when they come together. Something else happened during BTS's time on stage that deserves to be mentioned. They were given the honor of presenting the Best Female R&B Artist Award, which went to SZA. And SCA's reaction to meeting BTS in person was immediate and completely genuine. She was visibly thrilled, the way you are when you meet someone whose work you genuinely admire and the distance between artist and fan collapses in a real moment of human connection. It was brief, but it spoke volumes about the kind of cross-genre, cross-cultural respect BTS has earned in the music industry, not just among fans, but among their peers. Among the artists who are their contemporaries, SCA's reaction was real. And moments like that tell you everything about where BTS stands right now. Each member of BTS took a turn at the microphone after the Artist of the Year win. The dap-ups with Busta Rhymes. The smiles that were impossible to contain, genuine, unguarded, the real faces of 7 people who are actually moved by what is happening around them. Not a performance of gratitude, actual gratitude in the actual moment. RM spoke first. His words were simple and they were everything. ARMYs, we made it once again. Thank you. And then he went further. He shared something personal. The admission that while working on Swim, he had felt enormous pressure, had genuinely questioned himself, had wondered whether what they had was right. That vulnerability, honest, unprompted, offered freely on one of music's biggest stages, is not something you can manufacture. That is what BTS does. They let you see the real thing. J-Hope brought his signature warmth. Jin, Suga, V, Jungkook, each adding their voice, their personality, their own piece of the story of the night. And then, last, Jimin stepped forward. There is a reason BTS trusted Jimin with the final word. The last thing said is what stays. The last image is what lingers. In any important moment, the closing matters most. And they gave it to ParkJimin. He stepped up to the microphone. He looked out at the audience, at the ARMY in the arena who had voted and screamed and showed up, at the cameras connecting him to millions watching from home. And he said, "Thank you for passionately following us on tour and showing so much love in every city." Every city, 2 words that carry enormous weight. Because Jimin was not saying, thank you to fans, in a general, abstract way. He was speaking to the specific reality of what ARMY had been doing throughout the Era-Rang World Tour's North America leg. The ARMY who showed up in Tampa. The ARMY who came out in El Paso. The ARMY who filled Stanford Stadium for 2 sold-out nights. The ARMY who were in Las Vegas right now, in this very building, and who would be back at Allegiant Stadium in 2 more days for the final Vegas shows. He named their devotion specifically. He saw it and honored it. Because for Jimin, the fans is never an abstract concept. It is the actual people in front of him. And then, speaking to reporters backstage after the broadcast, he gave the quote that became the headline of the night. "I was as happy as the first time we took the stage, and it was the most nerve-wracking moment of the year." Read that again. The most nerve-wracking moment of the year. For ParkJimin, who spent 2026 performing at sold-out stadiums on multiple continents, who delivered night after night on the Era-Rang World Tour at the highest possible level, who has been giving performances of extraordinary technical and emotional difficulty for over a decade. For that man, standing at the AMAs, accepting an award, giving a speech, it was still the most nerve-wracking thing he experienced all year. That tells you something profound about the specific vulnerability of moments like this, about how different it is to simply be yourself, to simply speak, to simply stand there and receive something given to you by the people who love you most. No choreography to fall back on, no staging to hide behind, just 7 men and a microphone and the accumulated weight of everything their fans did to make that moment possible. Jimin compared the feeling to the very first time he ever took a stage. That first time electricity, the happiness and the terror combined, the overwhelming sense that this is real and it matters, that feeling is still alive in him after everything. It came back on May 25th in full force. There is one more thing worth saying about this quote, and what it means in the specific context of 2026. Jimin has been one of the central emotional pillars of the Nerve-Wracking comeback. His performances on the world tour have gone viral repeatedly, moments of vocal power, of body control, of genuine connection with audiences that travel beyond the K-pop community into the broader pop culture conversation. He has been giving extraordinary performances night after night. And the fact that even now, after all of that, he still walks into an AMA stage feeling the full weight of the moment, still experiencing it as the most nerve-wracking thing he has done all year, is not a sign of insecurity. It is a sign of someone who has never stopped caring. Someone who has never allowed success to insulate them from the actual experience of being present, being seen, being real. That is rare, genuinely rare, and it is one of the most important things about ParkJimin as an artist. That is why ARMY votes. That is why ARMY travels to every city. That is why this fan base does what it does year after year. Because the love and the honesty and the vulnerability that comes from this group is real. Jimin's quote is proof. It always has been. Let us take a final look at the full picture, because the AMA sweep deserves to be understood in the context of everything 2026 has already been for BTS. Nerve-Wracking launched in March and immediately commanded global attention. Swim hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The world tour has moved through Korea, Japan, and North America with sold-out shows at every single stop. Tampa, El Paso, Stanford Stadium, Las Vegas. Coming up, Busan in June for 2 shows at the Busan Asiad Main Stadium, right around the group's 13th debut anniversary. And then in July, the FIFA World Cup 2026 final halftime show at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, alongside Madonna and Shakira, marking the very first halftime performance in the history of the FIFA World Cup final. BTS, halftime, World Cup final, first time ever. That is what the rest of 2026 looks like. The AMA sweep is a milestone in the middle of an already historic year. 3 trophies, a perfect record, Artist of the Year for the second time, 5 years after making history with the first. And Jimin closing the night with words that said everything about who this group is and what they mean to the people who love them. ARMY, you made this happen. Every vote, every stream, every moment of time and energy you put into making sure BTS was heard, it all came back as 3 trophies on a stage in Las Vegas. That is your work. That is this community. That is the love you gave, reflected back. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now is the time. Hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications. We're going to be here for every remaining moment of this era. The Busan concerts, the World Cup halftime show, every Jimin highlight, every BTS milestone. It is all coming, and we will cover all of it the way it deserves to be covered. Check out our recent videos if you want to go deeper right now. Stanford Stadium, the North America tour highlights, Jimin's RIA milestones, Swim on the Hot 100. Everything is there waiting. 3 awards, 7 men, 1 night, 1 quote from Jimin that captures, in a single sentence, everything this fandom has always known to be true about him. He said it was the most nerve-wracking moment of the year. And somehow, knowing that, it becomes the most beautiful moment too. I will see you in the next one. Purple you ARMY. Always.